Welcome to the Geriatric Dietitian, your go-to resource for nutrition that supports health, independence, and confidence in aging. I'm your host, Katie Dodd, registered dietitian and geriatric nutrition expert. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to the 8th episode of the Geriatric Dietitian Podcast, Fiber for Seniors, Gut Health, and More. Now we are continuing our discussion all about key nutrients for healthy aging, and today we're going to talk about fiber and why it is so important for older adults. Now, most people only think about fiber in its relationship to constipation, but fiber actually does so much more than that. Fiber plays a role in digestion, feeling full after meals, yes, preventing constipation, but even reducing risk of heart disease, diabetes, and some cancers. And even though fiber is incredibly important, the truth of the matter is most adults, old and young, are not eating enough of it. So in today's episode, we're going to talk about why fiber matters for healthy aging, fiber recommendations for older adults, why most older adults still need more fiber. We'll talk about where to find fiber in food. We'll talk a little bit about supplements and wrap things up. As always, this podcast provides general nutrition education and not individualized medical advice. Fiber needs can vary based on digestive conditions, medications, fluid status, overall health, so it's important to work with your healthcare team for individualized recommendations. So, what is fiber? Fiber is a type of carbohydrate that the body cannot digest fully. And while this may sound strange, it actually makes fiber beneficial. Fiber supports healthy digestion, regular bowel movements, gut health, blood sugar management, cholesterol levels, and fullness after meals. Fiber also supports the gut microbiome, which is the healthy bacteria living in the GI tract. And we're learning more and more about how the gut impacts overall health and healthy aging. So why fiber matters in older adults? Fiber is really becomes an especially important nutrient in aging because constipation is pretty darn common in the aging population. There's many reasons behind this, including lower total food intake, reduced fluid intake, less physical activity, medications, and changes in digestion with aging. But fiber is more, again, than just bowel regularity. It can also support overall health. So let's talk about how much fiber we should be getting and also dive into the RDA, that recommended dietary allowance. Now, this is actually pretty interesting. If you remember the first 3 nutrients we talked about in the series, we talked about vitamin D, calcium, and B6, and the needs for older adults was higher. Our last vitamin we covered, B12, the same. And this one is a little bit different, but there's a caveat to it, okay? The recommended dietary allowance, the RDA for fiber, is actually lower for older adults compared to younger adults. So sometimes people ask, okay, if the RDA is lower, doesn't that mean the older adults need less fiber? Why are you talking about more? So here's where this recommendation can feel a little misleading. So for younger adults, that means those age 19 to 50, men are recommended to have 38 grams of fiber per day. Women are recommended to have 25 grams of fiber per day. So that's the recommendation most people hear throughout their life until they enter over age 50. And for men, their fiber needs decrease from 38 grams per day to 30 grams per day. And for women, it decreases from 25 grams a day to 21 grams per day. So again, for adults over age 50, men need 30 grams of fiber per day and women need 21 grams per day. Now, this recommendation decreases somewhat because calorie needs often decrease with aging overall. We will discuss calories and kind of my thoughts and big picture on this in our next episode. But here's the important part that I need all of you to hear. Just because these are recommendations doesn't mean people are doing it. Absolutely not. In fact, we know through research that about 95% of adults do not meet the recommended fiber intake. So while technically older adults may require a little less fiber than younger adults, most older adults aren't getting enough fiber anyways. And so the message really across the board for everyone is eat more fiber. And this is also why this is such an important topic for healthy aging. So let's talk about food sources of fiber. Fiber is found in plant-based foods. Some good sources of fiber include chickpeas, black peas, almonds, quinoa, broccoli, oatmeal, apples, bananas, whole wheat bread, and brown rice. Now, this, of course, is not the list of all foods high in fiber, but those are just some examples. You'll notice I was listing legumes and beans, nuts and seeds, vegetables, fruits, whole grains. So one of the great things about fiber is that the intake of fiber can add up throughout the day. So if you're having a little bit of fiber every meal and through snacks throughout the day, it's really easy to get your fiber. So it doesn't have to come from just one perfect meal. It can come from, small choices throughout the day. So for example, maybe for breakfast, you might have some oatmeal. Maybe you add some beans to your soup and salad with lunch, a fruit for a snack. If you're eating white bread currently, you could switch to a whole grain bread that has more fiber. You could read the labels for that. So these small changes can add up to big results over time. Now, important things to know before increasing fiber. If you're like, okay, I am one of the 95% of adults who do not get enough fiber, I need to go eat more. Remember that more fiber, especially quickly, isn't always better. So we want to make sure if you are adding more fiber, you do it gradually, and also make sure that you don't have any contraindications. So that's why I always talk about working with your healthcare team. Now, too little fiber may contribute to constipation and may increase risk for chronic disease over time, but too much fiber, especially if added quickly, can cause gas, bloating, cramping, and digestive discomfort. So if you just run to the cupboard and start throwing down the fiber, you might find yourself a little uncomfortable. So it's really important to gradually increase your fiber intake, and in addition to that, increase your fluid intake. As you increase fiber, drink plenty of fluids too. Fiber works best when someone is drinking plenty of fluids. If someone increases fiber without enough fluid, it actually can make constipation worse. So I do want to have a note about constipation here, because constipation is more than just fiber. Sometimes it could be easy to hear the message of here's how we treat constipation: more fiber, more fluids, more exercise. For many people, yes. I would say probably for most people, yes. But sometimes there can be an underlying medical issue contributing to constipation. For example, maybe you're on medications that are causing constipation. Maybe you actually have reduced mobility. It's called like a slow transit constipation, and this is just where your system moves things slowly. Maybe you have neurological conditions, pelvic floor dysfunction, digestive disorders, or other structural concerns. So if you have been struggling with constipation for a long time, your symptoms are worsening, you're maybe having abdominal pain, major changes in bowel habits, it's really important that you talk to your healthcare team and work on it, because there's always things that can be done. It could look like working with a pelvic floor physical therapist, something we might not think about. It might just be like, oh, fiber, fluid, but no, there's other healthcare professionals who could help you. And also I did mention how in some situations, adding a lot more fiber without understanding the root cause could actually make symptoms worse. And I want to circle back to why individualized care matters so much for older adults. And I'll share a little bit of a personal story here, because as a dietitian, I'm always comfortable talking about bowel movements and GI stuff. But as a dietitian, I've struggled with chronic constipation all my life. And it used to drive me crazy, because I am a dietitian. I eat plenty of fiber. I drink plenty of fluids. I am physically active. Why am I still constipated? And over time, as I continue to tell my, healthcare providers every year, I continue to get the same message: eat more fiber, eat more fiber. And I continue to get frustrated. So I think I wish I would have leaned into this conversation more to be like, well, can we see if there's something else going on? I was lucky that eventually a healthcare provider took me under their wing and got some testing done, had all kinds of tests done, and found out that I actually do have slow transit constipation. It's not just a matter of fiber. And actually, by me eating more fiber, I was making things worse, because my body just moves things slowly. And then I was adding even more fiber to back up even more. And one thing that actually did help me was seeing a pelvic floor physical therapist. At that time, this was a profession I'd never heard of, and now I adore them. So I just wanted to share in that personal story, because if you've ever felt defeated on I've been constipated for so long and fiber just doesn't help, there could be something else going on. But fiber, fluid, and physical activity really are our first go-to line for most people for constipation. So let's talk about fiber supplements, because again, dietitians, we are a big fan of food first, but we also recognize that some people are not able to meet their needs through fiber or through food alone. So if you're not able to get enough fiber through food, There are situations when supplements can help. Talk to your healthcare team about which ones are best for you. Examples might be like psyllium, so like Metamucil, or methylcellulose, which is like a citrusel. So again, supplements should be individualized. Different types of fiber supplements do work differently, and not every supplement is appropriate for every person. So it's always a good idea to check in with your doctor before starting a supplemental fiber. So let's wrap it up. Fiber is a key important nutrient for older adults because it supports so many different areas. It's not just about digestion, overall gut health, heart health, blood sugar management, fullness, overall wellness. And because most older adults and adults in general aren't meeting their fiber needs, even small improvements can make meaningful differences over time. To recap, we have talked about fiber supporting all the things that I already just listed. I don't need to say them again, but we talked about how fiber recommendations are actually a little bit lower for older adults, but the reality is most people don't eat enough fiber. So my take-home message is most people need more fiber. Fiber intake should be increased gradually. Fluid intake matters as well. And also keeping in mind that constipation isn't always as simple as just add more fiber. So if you want to learn more, I have a lot of articles on my website, thegeriatricdietitian.com, all about fiber. So go to the website, check it out. If you found this episode helpful, be sure to follow the podcast, share it with someone who might benefit. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next week on the podcast. Want simple nutrition tips to support healthy aging? Download my free guide, 10 Essential Nutrition Tips for Healthy Aging, packed with practical ways to stay strong, nourished, and independent as you age. Grab your free copy in the show notes or visit thegeriatricdietitian.com.